What is going on YouTube? I am Lamont at Large. Today we are at the Green Oaks Memorial Park Cemetery here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Heath Hodgson, my best friend, my lover, my husband, free as a river. Nicole Starnes Allman, February 28, 1974 to June 5, 2007. Nicole and her unborn son, Asen, were killed in a vehicle accident off the Interstate 12. And it was caused by an inattentive driver driving a 18-wheeler loaded with pipes. Apparently, the driver didn't see the traffic up ahead of him, and when he crashed, some of the pipes came off of the flatbed that he was hauling, and one of the pipes landed on Nicole's car. And I have never seen a car that I can remember being crushed the way that was. That looked like that car was taken through a compactor. And there was no way anybody in that car was going to survive. Got to pay more attention when we drive, folks, because not only is it your life that you're responsible for when you're behind the wheel, especially a big truck, but the countless lives of other people all around you. I'll lend you for a little time a child of mine, he said, for you to love the while he lives and mourn for when he's dead. Sometimes, no matter how much faith we have, we lose people. But even though you lose them, you never forget them. And sometimes it's those memories that give us the strength to go on. This here is the grave of Donna Ponsano, August 6, 1959 to March 29th, 1991. So Donna Ponsano used to work at a place called Cajun's Fabulous Fried Chicken here in Baton Rouge. She was a chicken cook there at the time. And on the 27th of March, 1991, she was the opening morning employee and was working with the manager of the store named Keith Clark. And as they were cleaning, doing their general duties, getting the place open for business, a man by the name of Feltus Clark came in, who was a former employee of the chicken restaurant. And Keith had previously fired him about 2 weeks before for just a poor performance. So this guy Feltus comes into the restaurant. He knocks on the door. Keith lets him in because he's an employee or former employee. And he asked Keith if he could get his job back. Now, Keith said, no, I can't hire you back. But I tell you what, there's a Popeye's chicken up the street that's hiring. I know the manager. I can get you a job there. I'll give you a good recommendation. So as they're talking about the interview, presumably he was going to call the Popeye's Chicken to tell the manager, hey, I got an employee, he really, really needs a job. So Feltus decides to go ahead and help them clean up the restaurant as he's waiting for the Popeyes to open up so he can go there for his job interview. And while he's sweeping, I guess he gets the wild idea that the solution to his financial problems in the world is to rob his former employer. So he goes out to his car, gets his gun and a pair of handcuffs, comes back in, pulls out a gun, puts it in Keith's face and says, open up the safe, open it now. And at first Keith is like, well, dude, what are you doing? Don't do this. And he makes it apparent he needs money. His car payment was past due and he needs the money. By gunpoint, he orders Keith and Donna to go to the back room to open the safe. As they're going to the back room, Keith makes a run for it, tries to open the back fire door to escape. However, it was locked. So once he did that, Feltus took the handcuffs and handcuffed both of them together and made him open the safe. He gets over $800 in cash from the safe. And then he tells Keith, I still want my job back. And, hey, listen, you're handcuffed. You got a gun in your face. Your life is flashing before your eyes. You'll tell this guy whatever he wants to tell him. Now, at first, before he gave him the cash to the safe, this guy was trying to convince Feltus to not do this, to not commit this crime. He even offered to write him a personal check. In my opinion, it's not your money. Just give it to them. Don't play with a guy like that. Moving forward with the story. He has the gun to both of them. And he says, I want my job back. And he says, okay, I'll hire you back. And reportedly, according to the testimony in the court, Donna here says, you're not going to really hire this guy, are you? Like, don't be serious. And then he pulls the gun to her head and shoots her 5 times. Puts the gun on Keith and shoots him about 3 or 4 times. As the shooting was taking place, an employee who was waiting to be let in, she heard the gunshots, immediately ran to another business and told the manager, I heard gunshots in there. I see there's a guy, Feltus, that used to work here, and he was with the manager. Call the cops. They call 911. They get there. Feltus had already took off. They get to the scene. They take both Donna and Keith to the hospital. 2 days later, Donna succumbed to her injuries. And Keith lived, he survived the shooting, but he has permanent paralysis in his body and a minor brain damage. The police immediately caught Feltus. I believe it was at his apartment. They asked him where the gun was. He said he threw it in the Mississippi River, but he took him to where the money was. He had buried the money in the field by his house. So they arrest him. They charge him with 1 count of first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder. Trial takes place. He's found guilty of the crime, and he's sentenced to die via lethal injection. There was a couple blocks by the Supreme Court of Louisiana in terms of stopping his execution. But of course, he was the 640th murderer to be executed in Louisiana for that crime. He was executed on June 6th of 2000. All for a little over $800 in a safe. He also had stole the money from the registers as well. So I think altogether they had got about a little over $1,200. Wow. I don't know if that's true about the testimony in court of what she said, but listen, if anybody could take any advice, I've been robbed before via gunpoint. I've had a gun in the back of my head. Give them what they want. Give them what they want. It's not worth your life. That was the move on Keith to try to run away. It's like, just give him the money. Just give him the money. Tell him whatever you want to hear. Yeah, As a matter of fact, not only will I hire you back, you can have my wallet. Just give them whatever they want. It's not worth your life, folks. I promise you it's not. Rest in peace to this poor woman, just working at a chicken place, making a living, supporting your family, what have you. And very, very sad story. This here is Sterling David Forbes, June 18th, 1986 to May 16th, 2009. Sterling was on the river with two of his friends, Brian Doherty and Chris Austin. They were driving their boat when another boat coming from the opposite direction hit them head on. Killed all three of them instantly. Police and fire and ambulance came out to rescue them, take them to the hospital. And while they're talking to the person who was in the other boat who hit them head on, a man by the name of Jerry Jordan, 53 years of age at the time, they noticed that he seemed a little bit inebriated. They did a field sobriety test, and he blew a 1.0, which is above the 0.8 legal limit to operate a boat. If you guys don't know this, when you're on the water, it's the same as when you're on the land. There is a blood alcohol level content that you must be under while operating a vehicle because of cases like this. Now, here's where the story gets murky. We know that this man, Jerry Jordan, killed these three kids. I did as much digging as I could on this guy, and all I know is, I'm not saying he was rich, but it seemed like he has some kind of money. In August of 2009, just a few months after this happened, he made his family name some kind of an LLC, I'm guessing to protect his assets from the families of the victims suing him. So, scumbag move, yeah, I know, but you do, I guess, whatever you do. So he bails out of jail, and he hires a lawyer, does everything he could to throw out the field sobriety test, doing this, doing that. Graves in cases like this perplex me, because there is people out there, like when you commit a crime, you can't hire internet companies to basically scrub the internet of your name. And I'm guessing this is what that guy did. I cannot find, and I spent quite some time looking this up, and I cannot find if he was ever even sentenced to prison. I cannot find how many years he did in prison. All I can find is he possibly got a divorce after this, and he blew a 1.0, and he was, of course, you're trying to have the case thrown out of court. You hired the sleaziest lawyer you can to defend you. And obviously, it's certain stories like this, you just will not find anything. That's why I say oftentimes looking stuff online, it could be very time consuming, and it seems like the internet forgets. And that's it. I don't know what else happened to the case. All I know is that I believe he is out now. He is no longer in prison. So he didn't get that many years, if he got any at all. I don't understand this. And the judge that was on his case, it looks like he has some ethics violations. So he was a scumbag too. Yeah, stuff like this I don't get. It's at the end of the day, if you got some kind of money and you commit crimes, it seems like unfortunately, our justice system is not fair in that regard because, when you have money, you don't face the same kind of punishment as you would if you were, a regular working guy or what have you. Rest in peace to Sterling, Chris, and Brian. I wish I could tell you more. I have no idea what happened to the man who killed these three individuals, Jerry Jordan. It's not every day that you get to visit the grave of a man that was killed by Pablo Escobar. I think this is a first for me. This is Adler Berryman Seal, also known as Barry Seal. He was a pilot for TWA in his early career. At the time he was working there, he was the captain and one of the youngest captains in the whole company. And I guess when you're flying for TWA, you're making a pretty good living, but I guess the excesses in life got to him and he just felt he wasn't making enough money. So he started smuggling marijuana on the side and just basically running small operations. He gets caught trying to smuggle some plastic explosives into Mexico in 1972. Later on, the case got dropped, but he got fired from TWA. So he basically just became a pilot for hire, smuggling marijuana here and there. And then, however, he found the cocaine market quite lucrative. Later on, he gets arrested and he's thrown into an Honduran prison. But this is where his career really took off, so to speak. He met a couple guys in prison. One of them knew a guy by the name of Pablo Escobar, who was at the time the head of the Medellin Colombian drug cartel, the largest drug cartel in the world at the time. So he starts working for Mr. Escobar, flying coke from Colombia to Florida, from Florida to Las Vegas, just distributing coke all over the place. Well, eventually he gets popped, and instead of him going down with the ship and getting sentenced to basically the rest of his life in prison, he turns DEA drug informant, and over the ensuing years would basically help bring down many a low-level and even high-ranking drug smugglers within the Escobar cartel. Of all the trouble he got into, pointing the finger at people, snitching people out, bringing people down, them getting life sentences, because of him working with the DEA and the help that he gave them for being a snitch, he only received 5 years of probation. That's amazing. 5 years of probation and you're moving kilos and probably tons of cocaine into the United States. Now, Mr. Escobar did not appreciate Mr. Seal here making an attempt to bring down his mighty drug empire. So on February 19th, 1986, 3 weeks into his probation, a man by the last name of Ochoa, I believe, pulled out a MAC-10 submachine pistol. You don't see too many of those around. And shot him to death. He died instantly. They eventually figured out it was him along with 5 other Colombians, and they were tried and convicted of the murder. And also they brought in the Escobar into the trial as well and convicted him, not of murder, but I believe they convicted Pablo Escobar of violating Mr. Seal's civil rights or because of him testifying against him in the trial in lieu of course, Escobar not being in federal custody. He was in Colombia where he later died, I believe, in a shootout with the Colombian army. There was a movie made about this guy called American Made, starring Tom Cruise. I don't watch movies. I don't really have a lot of time, but you may want to go check that out. And I am leaving out a lot of facts about this case. I could talk about 20 minutes about this whole thing. But still, at the end of the day, a very, very interesting story this man has. How many people can say they worked for Pablo Escobar and was a drug smuggling pilot? Quite interesting, to say the least.